who wants to come to work every day just to make money for somebody else, which is ultimately what most people do. I know, or how can you really care?
I was pretty convinced that I wanted to open the books to our coworkers.
Opening up the books to employees involved educating them on what the financial statements meant and sharing ownership.
We have tried to make our relationship with our coworkers in terms of the business of running the business very transparent, and I think that's another kind of foundational piece of who we are. It's bringing yourself to work each day in a loving mind frame, extending yourself to people, laughing, making sure that, you know, that work is a happy place.
Does this fit your impression of most companies that you know of? Probably not. That's because the owners of this company, Jeff Liebisch and Kim Jordan, decided early on what their values and goals were. Sure, overall the goal is to make a profit, but for Jeff and Kim, there's more to it. Having fun and allowing their employees to have fun with what they do is also important. They were able to visualize the far-reaching effects that this would have in the expansion of their business. By giving the employees a say in the overall company direction, the employees developed a vested interest in seeing the company progress further.
I started in homebrewing back in 1980. I had just moved to Golden from St. Louis and sharing a house with a guy who came home one day and said, "Hey, I heard you can make beer at home." And I looked at him and said, "I think you're crazy." But the next day we went out and bought some ingredients and made beer. And it was a semi-disaster and exploded and did all kinds of terrible things.
This hobby was put on the back burner shortly after that, but then Jeff, while on a family vacation in Belgium, discovered many new and exciting things about brewing beer the Belgian way. Jeff returned to Colorado and picked up his hobby once again. By utilizing ingredients that are not common in most beer breweries, like the Belgians, Jeff was able to create a variety of beers unlike most in the US. These creations were quickly becoming popular with family, friends, and locals. Eventually, his efforts erupted into a full-fledged brewery, the New Belgium Brewery, now located in Fort Collins, Colorado.
Banks would not give us business loans, and we weren't particularly interested in taking on business partners. So I came up with a design to put the brewing operation in the basement of our house. Because of the low capital investments, we were able to concentrate on making quality, somewhat esoteric beers and not needing to look for a high volume wide market in order to make the business somewhat profitable.
When we first started the brewery in the basement of our house, for starters, we didn't have any sense that what we were doing then would turn out to be this now. Jeff and I quickly realized as we became more and more successful that if we were going to have a life and be able to go on vacation together, that we needed to have someone help us run the business.
So I contacted them and said, you know, I just want to learn the business. I'm willing to work for free. Will you put me to work? And Jeff said, yeah. As a matter of fact, we could use some help bottling. I'd carry empty cases down the basement and then carry full ones back up on the return trip. When I started, 60 cases was a bottling shift.
Jump forward to the present, and from these small beginnings, a vast company has developed.
We just rolled with it, and we listened to our customers. We responded to what they wanted, and they wanted more beer, and that was intoxicating, so to speak, feeling to have people saying, "We really want your beer. Can you make more beer and send it to us?"
As New Belgium began to produce more beer, they needed to bring additional employees on board. In doing this, an organizational culture for the company began to form. Organizational culture is a firm's shared values, beliefs, traditions, philosophies, rules, and role models for behavior. This structure of organization directly affects the business's costs and efficiency. While on a hike in Colorado, they discussed the principles that were important for them in business, and from this, they developed the New Belgium's core values and beliefs.
When I first started working here, the first couple of years, it was a classic environment where you had to try and remember to put the financials away before you went home for the night and not leave financial information on the copier and things like that. In '95, Kim realized that in order to further the culture that she wanted, that employees had to be involved with all aspects of the business, and that included the financial aspects. So Kim and I went to a few conferences, read a few books, and started Open Book Management in 1996.
Open Book Management is primarily a way of running the company where employees have access to financial information. We train people to be financially literate, because it's my belief, and I think most open book management practitioners would agree, that you can't just hand people the books, because people need to know, what does that mean?
The biggest changes in the brewery for me were the open book management, even more so than the ownership of the company. Once Kim and Jeff decided to let us all know where everything was going, it made it real important for us to keep count of every keg. Any cases that are damaged, you know, it all adds up.
This was our initial foray into somehow making a statement that that we understand that it takes more than Jeff and I to get beer out the door, and that it's important that we share in all of that benefit, and frankly the risk too. You know, it's important that employee owners are thinking about the benefit and about, you know, investing for the future and about risk, and that it's a very real experience.
From this culture, an organizational structure developed. Structure is the arrangement or relationship of positions within an organization. New Belgium breaks its operations down into departments which then focus on particular issues within the company. For instance, the Wastewater Management Department deals specifically with water reclamation, whereas the Quality Assurance Department looks mainly at the standards associated with the product being produced.
QA is responsible for overseeing the quality of the beer, and we're also responsible for making sure that the beer stays clean all through the process. We're a self-managed group, and what that means is it's kind of a flat structure to a certain extent. We do report certain things to people that need our results, but as far as the structure of our department goes, we are all considered area leaders.
This leads us to look at the role that the degree of centralization plays in a company. In a centralized organization, authority is concentrated at the top and very little decision-making authority is delegated to lower levels. In a company like New Belgium Brewery, the decision-making authority is delegated as far down the chain of command as possible, which empowers its employees to make decisions without having to seek approval. For instance, in an area like quality assurance, this is important because if a change is needed, it can be implemented immediately before a batch of beer goes bad.
How can you really care about the certain small things that are necessary to be done day in and day out if you don't have a larger purpose behind them? And the larger purpose for us, I think, for me anyway, is to be a business role model, to be breaking new ground on what it can mean to operate exceptionally in the free market economy, while at the same time holding tight to very high ethical standards about who you want to be on the planet. Every decision we make is informed by our values.
The role of groups and teams in organizations vary from company to company. In work groups, employees are held individually accountable, even though they generally have a common goal. At New Belgium Brewery, however, the work done is a team effort in which everyone holds themselves mutually accountable. Employees are given part ownership in the company after 1 year's time, thereby creating an environment of employee owners and the desire for success for all involved.
We hear it a lot from customers, people who I'll run into and say, wow, I was at your brewery, and the vibe there is amazing. You can just tell that people really like being there, which for me is incredibly satisfying.
The change in management styles in companies throughout the United States and elsewhere is happening because the role of empowerment and culture is changing within the workplace. There are three things that greatly influence this change. First, employees' jobs have changed. The nature of work is changing to become more intellectual, and because of this, there's no one set way of doing things. The nature of management has also changed. It used to be that managers knew more about their jobs than employees did. Today, it's typical for employees to know more about the specialization of their job than anyone else. And finally, the employment relationship has changed. It used to be that employees were most concerned about issues such as pay, job security, and the hours of work. But now, they want to be more fully engaged in their work by problem solving and decision making. For Jeff and Kim at New Belgium Brewery, the bottom line is that it always comes down to open communication.
And I think that combination of happiness and extending yourself to have real relationships with people and being excellent here at New Belgium really creates a magical vibe.